Good day, everyone, especially to you, ma'am. I am Genevieve Piligro Maghinay, and today we will be tackling about learning, the nature of learning, and the different learning theories. But before that, allow me to read first the learning objectives of this discussion. So first, discuss the learning principles and theories, enumerate the different theories of learning, and explain the various theories of intelligence and learning. So, what is learning? Learning is the process of gaining knowledge and skills through practice, experience, and teaching. Like, for example, learning to ride a bike. So, in order for an individual to learn how to ride a bike, we need someone who is capable and knowledgeable enough on how to ride a bike nga mao'y magtudlo na to. But we won't learn kung ingnon matanga-ingana ang buhaton. Of course, we need to try it on how to ride a bike. And dili ra na nimo makatunan in just one day. Of course, you will get through a process, and in that process eventually you will fall. Pwede kang masamdan ginagmay ingana because that's part of the process. But over time, you will learn and improve. So that is learning. It's not just all about teaching, but also all about your experiences and consistent practice. Now, what is the nature of learning? It says that true learning happens when we connect deeply with what we are studying, both mentally, which is through understanding ideas, and physically, which is through practicing skills. So learning isn't just all about memorizing formulas, dili ra kay ka nang mag-memorize sa mga formulas or magbasa ra ka, but true learning is also about applying your knowledge to real world situations or real life situations. Like for example, applying your knowledge in mathematics to real world situations rather than just memorizing formulas. So that's what true learning is. Now, let's talk about the different theories of learning. First is the behaviorist theory. This theory says that behavior is shaped by rewards, punishments, and repetition, not by thoughts or feelings. So, for further explanation, here are the characteristics of behaviorist theory. First, assumes that a learner is essentially passive, responding to environment stimuli. So, behaviorism views learner as reacting to their environment. They don't actively think, but learn through rewards and punishment. So like for example, a student who passed in her exam and she was given a chocolate or candies by her parents as a reward. So of course, tungod kay nakahibaw si Ja nga every time nga makapasar si Ja, she will be given or she will receive a reward from her parents, and that leads her to strive nga always si Ja maningkamot nga mupasar sa iyang exam, knowing that she will expect or she will receive a reward after. And sa punishment, like for example, a student who came home late from school, and because of that, she was grounded. Dili siya makagamit og cellphone for that night, for the whole night. So knowing nga every time nga moabot siya nga late from school, so kahibaw na siya nga dili siya makagamit og phone, and that leads to the decrease of that behavior ana nga student. And that is behaviorism. Next, believes that a learner starts out with clean slate and behavior is shaped by positive and negative reinforcement. So, learners start with no built-in knowledge and everything is learned through experience. So, maupod na ang behaviorism. Like for example, an infant who learns to smile because her caregiver smiles at her. So, that infant won't learn on how to smile on her own. But tungod kay nakita ni Jang nga ni smile lang ni Jang caregiver, and that that is also the reason nga ni-smile ang bata. Next, reinforcement, positive or negative, increases the possibility of an event happening again, while punishment, positive or negative, decreases the possibility of an event happening again. So, mingon tag reinforcement, in simpler terms, encouragement. So, positive or negative, when you are encouraging a child, there are bigger possibilities nga kanang bataa, ijahan ng usbon nga, or ija ng permi buhaton kana nga behavior, knowing that she is encouraged and she was given rewards. And also sa punishment, of course, kung nakay buhaton nga butang and then you will be given punishment, ang bata dili na jud na niya utruhon pa og buhat, knowing nga naay punishment nga naghuwat niya. Next, positive reinforcement is the application of a stimulus, and negative reinforcement is the withdrawal of a stimulus. And lastly, behaviorism is the precursor of cognitive learning. So what does it mean? It means that behaviorism came first, focusing only on the actions that we can see, like reward changing behaviors. And cognitive learning later built on this by adding the study of invisible mental processes. So think of it like this. Behaviorism taught us how actions are shaped, and cognitive learning answered why we think the way we do while acting. So those were the characteristics of behaviorism theory. And now there are important peoples in this theory, and that is to be discussed by the next reporter. Thank you.
All right. Good day, everyone, especially to you, Mom Rosario Peloton. I am John Mark Sangares Mosong. So right now, I will continue our group discussion. So my part is all about the important people and behaviorism theory. And we will also tackle about Albert Bandura's social learning theory. So first, we have the important people and the behaviorism theory. So there are 6 individuals who are very important in behaviorism theory. So namely, we have Ivan Pavlov, B.F. Skinner, John B. Watson, Albert L. Bandura, Clark L. Hall, and lastly we have Edward L. Thorndike. So first in line we have Ivan Pavlov. So Ivan Pavlov did the experiment with the dogs. So came up with the theory of classical conditioning. So Pavlov is famous for his experiments with the dogs, just like what I have said earlier. So which lead to the discovery of classical conditioning. So what do you mean by classical conditioning? So when we say classical conditioning, it is the learning through association. So it is a neutral stimulus that becomes associated with a naturally occurring stimulus to produce a learned response. So next in line we have B.F. Skinner. So B.F. Skinner developed the theory of operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is the use of consequences to modify the occurrence and form of behavior. So Skinner developed the theory of operant conditioning. So when we say operant conditioning, it is the learning that involves two consequences. So, behaviors followed by desirable consequences are more likely to be repeated, while behaviors followed by undesirable consequences are less likely to be repeated. So, next in line we have John B. Watson. So, John B. Watson, or the Little Albert experiment. So, he gets credit for establishing the psychological school of behaviorism. So, Watson is known for the Little Albert experiment. So, which lead to demonstrate that fear could be learned through classical conditioning. So he's also credited with establishing behaviorism as a major school of thought and psychology. So next in line we have Albert L. Bandura. So Albert L. Bandura, his social learning theory points out the importance of observational learning. So, Bandura's social learning theory emphasizes that observational learning. So, this means we learn by watching others and imitating others' behavior. So, this contrasts with purely behaviors approaches that focus solely on direct reinforcement and punishment. So that's Albert Bandura. So next in line we have Clark L. Hall. So Clark L. Hall wanted to explain learning and motivation by observing one's behavior, famous for the drive reduction theory. So Hall attempted to explain learning and motivation using a scientific approach, focusing on observable behaviors. So, his drive reduction theory suggests that we are motivated to reduce internal drives like hunger or thirst. So, lastly, we have Edward L. Thorndike. So, Edward L. Thorndike was an influential psychologist who is often referred to as the founder of modern educational psychology and the proponent of the connectionism theory. So, Thorndike is considered a founder of modern educational psychology and a key figure in connectionism. So, when we say connectionism, it is a theory that explains learning as the formation of connections between stimuli and responses. So, his law of effect states that behaviors followed satisfying consequences are strengthened, while those followed by annoying consequences are weakened. So that's Edward L. Thorndike. So that's the end of the important people in behaviorism theory. So now let's move on to Albert Bandura's social learning theory. So we all know that Albert Bandura is also an important individual in behaviorism theory. So now let's dive into his theory, which is the social learning theory. So Albert Bandura's social learning theory focuses on the learning that occurs within social context. So it considers that people learn from one another. So including such concepts as observational learning, imitation, and modeling. So Albert Bandura's social learning theory explains how we learn from observing others in social situations. So it's not just about rewards and punishment, but it is also about watching, copying, and modeling others' behavior of people around us. So this includes learning through observation. So just like imitation and modeling the actions of others. So this theory has implications for understanding learnings in various contexts. So from education and parenting to social interaction and media influence. So that's Albert Bandura's social learning theory. So that's the end of my part. So I hope you understand. And thank you for listening, everyone.
So, hello everyone. For my part, I'll be discussing the nativist theory. So, what is nativist theory? Nativist theories argue that children are born with an innate ability to organize laws of language, which enables children to easily learn a native language. They believe that children have language-specific abilities that assist them as they work towards mastering language. So, nativist theory says that we are born, from the moment that we're born, we have a special ability which is to learn a language. And this inner tool or language tool helps kids understand grammar rules even if they don't hear perfect examples. We all know nga kids learn fast. So according to the nativist theory, kids learn fast because of this tool, not just by copying what they hear. But some people disagree. They disagree ang ubang tao, saying that kids, what kids hear is also very important according to them. So let's move on to the next slide. Now that we have a basic idea sa nativist theory, let's move on na sa who created the nativist theory. So, the one who created nativist theory was no other than Noam Chomsky. And according to Noam Chomsky, the nativist theory is a biologically based theory, which argues that humans are pre-programmed with the innate ability to develop language. So, Noam Chomsky is the main theorist associated with the nativist perspective. So, Noam Chomsky is nituo nga from the moment nga na tao ta or we are born, we have a built-in ability or nanatay natural ability which is to learn a language, which is na-mention na po above, diba? This means we're naturally wired to understand and speak, diba? Nakabantay mo sa mga bata nga, bisan og di pa na sila ka-istorya, bisan og baby pa na sila, di pa na sila unsa di pa sila ka-istorya, pero imong istoryahan, imong hagwa-hagwaon, makasabot sila, diba? Mukatawa or muhilak nga na something, diba? That is the nativist theory is all about. For example, nako example here. For example, a young child might say, I go to the park, which is nag-use sa og incorrect past tense nga good. They haven't learned this from adults, but they instinctively trying to apply a rule of grammar, adding ed to make past tense. So, this shows their innate understanding of language structure. Now, let's move on sa third and last part sa awang part. Last slide sa ahong part. So, how can we use this idea to help children learn? Unsao man nato ni paggamit nga idea para matabangan nato ang children nga maka-learn. So, I have here strategies to implement the nativist theory in the classroom. The first one is use pictures, objects, and drawings to associate with vocabulary, words to enhance meanings and comprehension. So, to help kids learn language naturally, like the nativist theory says, use lots of pictures and real things to show word meanings. For example, showing a real apple while teaching the word apple. We talk to them a lot, read to them, and let them play with words through games and stories. For example, play rhyming games or act out a story. Make learning fun and let them use language in different ways. Another example is let them tell about their day. Ana. So number 2, ask questions that require more than just a yes or no answer. We need to ask them questions that required answers more than just a yes or no. For example, instead of asking, "Is it raining?" ask, "Tell me about the weather outside." This encourages a more detailed answer, helping children develop their descriptive language skills. So that would be all for my part. Thank you.
So now let's move forward to the next topic. We have this interactionist theory. So when we said interactionist theory, it holds that the nature of the transaction or confrontation is not as important as the meanings which people attach to their own actions to the actions of others. A person does not act in predeterminable way, but his actions are purposeful and involuntary. So when we said interactionist, it involves the true interaction. So when we interact with the different people, we can learn from it. So with this theory, it emphasizes the role of social interaction and cultural context in shaping a learner's understanding and development. It also highlights that the learning occurs through interaction with others, especially those more knowledgeable or experienced, and that these interactions influence how individuals interpret and construct meaning. And then, learning is not an individual activity, but a social process where learners actively engage with others, sharing ideas, negotiating meaning, and learning from each other. So it's really hard for us because when we said learning, it's not an innate. So it could be learned from other people. So through social interaction, we can learn from it. It's because learning is not an inherent. It can be constructed through interaction. So what is interactionist theory in education? So the symbolic interactionist perspective focuses the social interaction in the classroom, on school playgrounds, and at other school-related venues. Social interaction contributes to general socialization, and teachers' expectations may affect their students' performance. So, a student cannot learn without a teacher. That's why it's really important nga ang usa ka teacher mo socialize or mo response ug unsa ang kinahanglan sa usa ka bata through interaction. Yes. And with this interactionism, it focuses on how individuals, especially students and teachers, create meaning to their interactions. It examines how these interactions shape perceptions, expectation, and academic outcomes. This perspective highlights the importance of social interaction in learning and emphasizes the role of labels, teacher expectation, and the broader social context education. So when we said label students, these are considered as the gifted students. So bisa pag makaingon ta nga gifted na sila, they had also the negative side. So when we said negative side, basing sa academic sila lamang, but through mental health, di mas kuan sila na sila lack. So that's why it's really important that through interaction with the teachers, makahatag sila og kanang advice para mas ma-healthy ilang mental health. Exactly. And interactionists believe that meanings are not inherent. So as I have said earlier, that learnings are not inherent. It could be constructed through interaction. So it's really important to us that we have to interact with the different people kay, we can learn from it, mampod, diba? So in conclusion, learning is shaped by a mix of environment, thought processes, and biology. Effective teaching uses flexible, research-backed methods focused on learners' needs and real-world application. So learning is shaped by a mix of environment. So it could be in school, it could be in a church, it could be at your home, because learning is everywhere. We can learn from our parents, we can learn from our friends, we can learn from the different people, because learning is not an inherent, as what I have said earlier. It could be construct through interaction. Kay basta pag ikaw, baka ingon tagkabauna ka, pero you have to learn pa man, because learning, managing just keep on learning, because learning is everywhere. And of course, when we are learning, we have to be literate enough. We have to literate enough whether the information are false or true. So that's why we have this literacy nga, we have to be si tawag ani oy kanang maka-determine jud ta nga ug unsay fake ug unsay true. So that's why through this information maka-learn ta through sa mga teachers kay mo lagi nang it's really important nga makipag-interact ta nila because that's our mentor, and with that mentor maka-learn ta from it. And of course in a real world application makaingon ta nga to our future endeavor, makaingon jud ta nga okay, I can handle this because naka-learn man ko nila. So as what I have said, learning is everywhere, and I thank you.